idea, a new world order.
Your world is not what it seems. Alex answering. Outside the box.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is May 22nd, 2011. I'm very excited to be with you tonight. We are having, again, a second discussion tonight with the author of the book, The Grandest Deception, that was on Outside the Box last week. His name is Dr. Jack Pruitt. So we're actually going to be talking with him over the course of the next hour instead of covering the news in the first part, because he's covering a lot of very interesting issues and subject matter in his book, which we will talk about tonight. The Anunnaki, Ancient Astronauts, the true power behind the Illuminati, and what it means for us today, if all of this is true. Looking at our world today, this construction of a new world order. And so we're going to be looking deeper into the rabbit hole, because I think that's what we need to do at this point when things are certainly as strange as they are. And so his book can be found over at thegrandestdeception.com. And we'll briefly go over a little bit about him. Again, he lives in a rural area in southeast Texas with his wife. They run a small medical clinic near Houston, Texas. He spent many years studying the Bible, the works of Zecharia Sitchin, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and various scriptures of a religious or spiritual nature. Dr. Pruitt believes that ancient astronauts came to Earth in our distant past, and that they created mankind, and that they and their descendants run the world today. So it's a very interesting idea. He's not the only one to talk about such issues. Michael Tellinger he's going to be on the show again on June 19th, 2011. He'll be speaking on the 24th. There are also many others that are lecturing around the world on these particular subjects, and the very fact that more and more humans are interested in such history indicates that maybe there may be some shift in consciousness taking place. But again, I'm only speculating. But with that, let's go ahead and talk with Jack, who is on the line from Texas. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Alex.
Well, thanks for coming on tonight in the second interview. And could you kind of bring us up to speed for those that didn't catch the show last week, what your book's about and some of the stuff that we covered last week?
Yes, my pleasure. I would just say, first of all, to your audience that Alex did give me the hookup to the YouTube video that I watched the interview last week, and one thing was apparent very quickly, that I don't talk as fast as Alex does, and so I wasted a lot of his airtime. I don't know if I can do it or not, but I'm going to try to talk faster tonight so we can get as much information to you as possible. But my book basically was based initially on work done by Mr. Zecharia Sitchin and ancient tablets that were found in the lands of the Bible. These ancient tablets actually describe in great detail how our Earth and solar system were formed. They go into great detail about how mankind was actually created as a slave race to do the work for the Anunnaki, primarily mining gold. And the first atom that they created was sterile. They used these people to mine gold for over 100,000 years. The slave race that they were creating, though, was actually creating problem because they couldn't create us fast enough. They decided to do a little genetic engineering, and they altered mankind in such a way that we could reproduce. At that point in time, we find that story in Genesis in the Bible, although it is altered and is somewhat deceiving about eating from the tree of knowledge. Mm-hmm. However, once mankind was given the ability to reproduce, the Anunnaki were living in what they called the Eden, E.D.I.N. This was the lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And of course our Bible calls that the Garden of Eden. They decided they needed some house slaves and some slaves to tend their gardens and take care of the fields and crops and so forth. So they moved some people to the Eden. However, Enlil, who was in charge of the earth operation, decided that mankind was too noisy and boisterous, and they knew that a natural disaster was going to occur which would flood the earth, and that was caused by the return of their planet Nibiru, which shook the earth in such a way that the ice caps at both north and south poles were disturbed, and the earth was flooded. However, Enlil's half-brother Enki told a person in the Sumerian language who was named Ziusudra how to build a submarine. Our biblical Noah, the submarine was built, the egg and sperm from animals were placed on board, quick frozen, as was seeds and various plants and so forth, and that occurred about 13,000 years ago, 11,000 BC. Once the water subsided, when the Anunnaki returned to Earth, the leader Enlil was very disturbed that mankind had been saved and was very unhappy about that. But those ancient tablets describe all those stories and many other stories that we find in our Bible in great detail. And I think if one does the research and spends the time, most people would agree with me that we have very good evidence now what happened on our earth prior to the flood. The Anunnaki initially came here about 450,000 years ago. Their lifespans are so much longer than ours because their planet orbits our sun every 3,600 years. So 3,600 Earth years is equivalent to only one Nibirian year. And so these people, I have other evidence. My belief is that their average lifespan is probably around 500,000 years. So it's quite easy to understand how ancient man would think that these people were gods, especially since they're so much further advanced than we are. They didn't age during the entire lifespan of a human. And so that takes us up to our Bible. Our Bible basically says very little about the first 4.5 billion years of the earth and what happened during those years, and says very little about the Anunnaki. It does say in the 6th chapter of Genesis that the Nephilim, who were the Anunnaki, cohabited with the daughters of man, and that their offspring became the mighty men of the earth and the leaders and the rulers. That continues today. Those descendants of those people, I believe, control our world today, run our world today, control us, and they have very little regard for human life. Our Bible actually states that man is of little value or no value because our breath is in our nostrils. You'll find that verse in my book. And what that means is because our lifespan is so short compared to theirs that we're of not much value to them individually. At any rate, the Christian Bible, the Hebrew Bible, the Quran, the Bible of the Muslims, the ancient scriptures of the Hindus and Buddhists, the Book of Mormon, all of these religious scriptures were actually written by the Anunnaki. And that's difficult for us to accept. It took me 12 years to accept that fact, but I think we now have the proof that is the fact. And so we live in a world that is very deceitful, very dishonest. And if you look at our Bible, it becomes very glaring very immediately. I think that ever since the flood, the Anunnaki have kept mankind at war with each other, and we continue to kill each other by the hundreds of thousands. And there's just story after story after story in the Bible of these different wars that we have been deceived into fighting for the Anunnaki, which are really part of a family feud that were going on between the two half-brothers. So with that, I think that what I would like to talk about tonight, if we could, is more how that relates to current events and current affairs, and what mankind needs to do if we're going to survive as a race of beings. If you really understand the book of Revelations in our Bible, I think that it is quite apparent that the Anunnaki have in store for us some very bad outcome. They plan to exterminate mankind almost completely from the face of the earth, except for a few slaves that they're going to basically turn into what I call biological robots to do the work that they will need, and they will take over the earth. If mankind doesn't learn the truth and see whether there is a way that we can alter the fate that they have planned for us.
Well, at this point in the game, we can see that there is some sort of an intelligent force that is operating behind government. Many today debate on what that force is, but the question does arise, is this a force that we fully understand? You know, when you look at what's been taking place for thousands of years, many people say, well, there can't be a conspiracy. No human can be that organized. But then we come back down to the original question, is it actually man steering some of these events? And you talk about these wars. So we see repeatedly certain particular ethnic bloodlines being targeted. And I think that's a great place to start in the conversation, Jack. We look at the Middle East today. We look at Iraq. Modern day Iraq is Mesopotamia, where these legends of the past, of these gods, these wars of the gods took place. Today we see a war of the worlds taking place in Iraq. And people are asking questions. William Henry has written some stuff on the internet that has attracted some interest with his articles about a potential Stargate. I have read articles about a potential underground when Saddam Hussein was the ruler there. This is when he had come up with this information after Saddam was removed, after we invaded. I don't remember hearing so much about the underground after that. And I can't help but wonder if there's something in Iraq today that links to the ancient world. And so there may be men out there, Jack, that know the answers to some of these questions that I hope will step forward.
Yes, I hope so. I think that there's no question now in my mind that certainly there is some power that causes mankind to do things that really make no sense. If you look at what's taking place in our world today, there's just so many things that don't make sense. If we look at the United States and what's taking place in Washington, D.C., then the decisions of our government to do the things that we're now doing is certainly not beneficial to our nation or to our citizens or to mankind as a whole. And I've gone into some detail in my book about how I think there's pretty good evidence now that the Anunnaki have an entire underground civilization on this earth, and there's been some evidence that they have mind control machines. There's certainly